because of all the actions he took, because of the calls he made, because of the determination of American workers and the unparalleled bravery of our special forces, we can now proudly say what you've heard me say the last 6 months. Osama bin Laden is dead and General Motors is alive.
Oh,
Reagan.
now you're Jack Kennedy.
Ronald Reagan. Republicans and Democrats used to doing bipartisan
deals. But we told each other what we're going to do. When we did it with Reagan, he said, here are the things we're going to cut. Here's what he said.
Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Trump.
We really did beat Medicare, beat it to death, and it's destroying Medicare.
Biden has had an obvious and clear cognitive decline over the past few years, but the Democratic Party still insists that cognitively he is absolutely fine. This video will obliterate that narrative and expose the dramatic decline that Biden has unfortunately experienced.
And he intuitively understood the message it would have sent around the world if the United States gave up on an industry that helped put America on the map in the first place.
Conviction, resolve, Barack Obama. That's what saved the automobile industry. Conviction, resolve, Barack Obama. Look, you heard my friend John Kerry. This president has shown the same resolve, the same steady hand in his role as commander-in-chief. And he also knew the message we had to send around the world. If you attack innocent Americans, we will follow you to the end of the earth. Look, most of all, President Obama had an unyielding faith in the capacity and the capability of our special forces. Literally the finest warriors in the history of the world. The finest warriors in the history of the world.
Biden is gesturing freely here, making eye contact with various people around the room. His vocal inflections also match perfectly with the points that he's stressing, suggesting a very confident, coherent train of thought and sense of ability in himself. He's showing no signs of lexical retrieval difficulties, being able to remember and deliver his speech perfectly, as well as being able to divert his attention into controlling his non-verbal communication. He's able to stress the points he's making, which can be an incredibly taxing task. And the fact that he does this flawlessly here suggests a brilliant mental capacity.
He said, do it, and justice was done. Folks,
because if you understood that America's heart had to be healed, you would have done exactly what the president did, and you would move heaven and earth to hunt him down and to bring him to justice. This man has courage in his soul, compassion in his heart, and a spine of steel. And because of all the actions he took, because of the calls he made, because of the determination of American workers and the unparalleled bravery of our special forces, we can now proudly say what you've heard me say the last 6 months. Osama bin Laden is dead and General Motors is alive. That's right.
Biden has a perfectly normal blinking rate here, and he's not expressing any signs of cognitive strain or increased mental load that would indicate that he's under any difficulty. He's able to focus his attention on building rapport with the audience, which he does by making eye contact with them as well as gesturing to them. All of these factors make him appear to be incredibly competent.
Bringing jobs back to America is what the president's job was all about. That's what presidents do, or at least supposed to do. Folks, Governor Romney believes it's okay to raise taxes on middle classes by $2,000 in order to pay for literally another $1 trillion tax cut for the very wealthy. President Obama knows that there's nothing decent or fair about asking people with more to do less and with less to do more. Governor Romney believes that kids like our dreamers, those immigrant children who were brought to America's shores through no fault of their own, he thinks they're a drag on the American economy. President Obama believes that even though those dreamers, those kids, didn't choose to come here, they have chosen to do right by America, and it's time for us to do right by them. 4 years ago, we were hit hard. You saw your retirement accounts drained, the equity in your homes vanished, jobs lost around the line. But what did you do as Americans? What you've always done. You didn't lose faith. You fought back. You didn't give up. You got up. You're the ones. The American people, you're the ones. You're the reason why we are still better positioned than any country in the world to lead the 21st century. You never quit on America, and you deserve a president who will never quit on you. America is not in decline. I've got news for Governor Romney and Congressman Ryan. Gentlemen, never, ever, it never makes sense. It's never been a good bet to bet against the American people. Never.
Biden is able to change his tone of voice here to perfectly reflect what he's saying in his speech. This demonstrates a great contextual awareness and shows clearly that he's not experiencing memory deficits, nor executive function impairments. These are all symptoms of a healthy and neurotypical mind.
He is wrong about that. You can cut tax rates by 20% and still preserve these important preferences for middle-class taxpayers.
Not mathematically possible.
It is mathematically possible. It's been done before. It's precisely what we're proposing.
It has never been done before.
It's been done a couple of times, actually.
It has never been
Jack
done
Kennedy
before.
lowered tax rates, increased growth. Ronald Reagan.
Now you're Jack Kennedy.
Ronald Reagan. Republicans and Democrats have worked together on this. I understand you guys aren't.
Biden is constantly looking towards his opponent and then back to the audience. He's constantly trying to build rapport with the audience, as well as focusing on Mr. Ryan, reading his nonverbal cues whilst also listening to his argument. Simultaneously, he's also thinking of counter-arguments. This shows a great mental capacity. He's reading his nonverbal communication, assessing the crowd for their reaction, and to gauge the mood whilst also performing a highly complicated mental task of coming up with a counterpoint.
Used to doing bipartisan
other what we're going to do. When we did it with Reagan, he said, here are the things we're going to cut.
Framework. Let's work together to fill in the details. That's exactly.
Fill in the details.
That's how you get things done. You work with Congress. Look, let me say it this way.
That's coming from the Republican Congress working bipartisanly.
Mitt Romney.
7% rating.
Mitt Romney was governor of Massachusetts, where 87% of the legislators he served with were Democrats. He didn't demonize them. He didn't demagogue them. He met with those party leaders every week. He reached across the aisle. He didn't compromise principles.
And you
found common ground, and he balanced the budget.
If he did such a great job,
he balanced the budget 4 times without raising taxes.
Why isn't he even contesting Massachusetts?
Biden shows a bunch of small details in his body language that show he's responding to what Mr. Ryan is saying. He smiles, expresses facial tension, distances with his head, and does a bunch of behaviors to show that he's in rapport with his rival. This shows he's attentive and focused on the conversation. He's displaying effectively none of the typical signs and symptoms of dementia, and his behavior is entirely neurotypical. Now let's observe Biden a mere 8 years later during his 2020 presidential campaign. The difference in his behavior is striking.
The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just want to make sure.
You're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
Mr. President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be surprised.
You pick
You'd be surprised.
the wrong guy, the wrong night at the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let him.
There is no manifesto. Number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
would you answer that
because
question?
the question
you want to put a lot
is
of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justice,
the
radical
question,
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
right.
Gentlemen, I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the court.
We have
not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment.
So Biden is gesturing well here, supporting what he's saying with his body language. When Trump tries to talk over him, he quickly distances, showing an elevated stress level. This is a normal response of what's going on, and shows he's aware of the context of the situation. He shows no real signs of executive function impairments, as he's able to regulate his behavior by making eye contact with the mediator to try and get them to calm the debate down and allow him to speak. This shows a decent awareness as to what's going on.
And here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since at the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all.
Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing.
FBI director
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
Not militia. That's what his FBI, FBI director said.
We now begin to see quite frequent signs of lexical retrieval difficulties, which is one of the common signs of dementia. He stammers a number of times trying to think of the correct words to say. He also shows signs of syntactic processing issues, which is when people struggle to use the correct grammar in their sentences. He frequently repeats what he says as he struggles to speak coherently, causing him to have to repeat himself.
I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. He started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy has a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
He makes a number of errors here in the delivery of his speech. He says racist fires and says Mexican rapist instead of the correct plural. He says to the about the poor boys, which also makes no sense at all. We all make mistakes and trip over our words sometimes, but the rate in which he does this is extremely alarming and shows clear evidence of cognitive decline and early stage dementia. Compare this to 2012 and he is dramatically different in his behavior. Now let's skip ahead just 4 years to the infamous 2024 presidential debate, which would lead to Biden's withdrawal from the presidential race. It's important to note that dementia is a progressive illness and takes around 8 to 10 years to become fatal in a person. So now, 4 years later, the signs of the illness should be significantly more visible due to the progressive nature of this illness.
That $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they in fact pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare,
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
I'm just stating the obvious at this point. He has had an extreme decline in his cognitive ability in just 4 years. I lost count as to how many mistakes he made in just that one short clip. He shows extreme lexical retrieval difficulties with virtually everything he says, and to back this up, his non-verbal communication reflects this. He does what's called prolonged blinking in conjunction with his retrieval issues. This is when he blinks for an above average level of time. Carson in 1983 conducted research which found that prolonged blinking and changes in blinking pattern is a response to psychological stress. This stress is caused by Biden lacking the cognitive ability to communicate effectively. He then blinks for a prolonged period of time as part of the body's autonomic nervous system reaction.
He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people, they cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. It's ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies. People are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker, you're the loser.
Another extremely obvious difference here is that Biden's voice is incredibly frail and weak. This is another common symptom of dementia, especially in late-stage dementia. A study conducted by Koenig, Satt, and Soren et al. From the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease in 2015 found that compared to the neurotypical control group, patients with the disease showed strong signs of a monotone voice as well as a noticeable reduction in vocal loudness. These are all signs that Biden is displaying here. This is just further evidence to add to the growing list that Biden sadly does have this illness.
The only person at this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots? Come on. When I asked him the first 2 debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do? Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn.
Let's not act like children.
to a
specific concern.
It's terribly sad to see such a stark contrast in his behavior. Regardless of his political beliefs, this man is suffering from a serious life-altering illness that will progressively get worse. The idea that he could stand, let alone win the next election, is a crazy one, and his party caught on to this. I do feel for him, and I hope that he will live on and spend quality time with his family. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.